Welcome to our YouTube channel. The stories of Akbar Birbal. The cry of a child. Akbar had some of his officers always surrounding him to catch him by the crowbar and saying yes to everything he said. Seeing their actions, Birbal frowned and thought, are these Akbar's servants? Or are they just dogs who are hunting for anything? One day Birbal told them what came to his mind and they were shocked. Birbal, if you dare mention it as our dogs, you owe us an apology. They jumped up in anger. Why not say your dogs? When Birbal asked, we are intelligent people, they said, that's what it looks like, said Birbal with a sneer. Then why do you say our dogs? They asked. Wrong, because dogs have tails. Wrong, because dogs have tails. You don't, said Birbal. Hold your tongue. They were furious and said, what wonderful thing have I said that you are so angry? I say you have no courage and you are cowards. Is that wrong? Said Birbal. Hold your tongue. They were furious and said, what wonderful thing have I said that you are so angry? I say you have no courage and you are cowards. Is that wrong? Said Birbal. Okay, drop it. We are left as cowards. But are you braver than us? Someone asked Birbal. Yes, without a doubt. Tell me in what way I shall prove my courage to you, said Birbal. Said, can you be late for the Durbar without first getting permission from the emperor? One challenge. Akbar's command is that others should come before Akbar comes to the meeting. If someone is unable to arrive on time, advance notice should be sent for late arrival. The emperor will take strict action against those who violate that canon. Birbal also knows this. However, he did not want to put his foot in front of him and said, okay. Tomorrow I will show up late to the meeting without prior permission. He said that. They went happily thinking that tomorrow the emperor would punish Birbal severely. The next day when Akbar entered the Durbar, everyone except Birbal had already arrived. All stood up and saluted him and then sat on their seats. Akbar also sat on his seat. Then Akbar looked at the audience once and realized that Birbal was not the only one among them. Why didn't Birbal come? Has he sent any information? Akbar asked the audience. Immediately, someone in the congregation stood up and said, no, Lord, said. Didn't even come to Durbar. No information sent. Send someone to bring him here. Akbar ordered. The man who went to fetch Birbal returned shortly. Lord, his baby is crying and crying. He said he would come after convincing it, he said. How arrogant would Birbal send such a reply? Can't pacify the crying baby for the very naughty Birbal? This is not what you believe, said Akbar. Then angrily, convey my orders that Birbal should appear here immediately. But if he offers any peace, tie him up. He ordered the employee. As he angrily issued the order, Birbal rushed into the assembly. Akbar stared at Birbal with his head on Calvary. Forgive me, Lord. My 3-year-old has been crying hysterically since morning. I couldn't convince myself of that. That's why I couldn't come to Durbar on time. My baby is still crying, said Birbal. I won't believe you couldn't convince a child, said Akbar. I will tell you what happened, listen. When I woke up in the morning, my child asked for sugarcane, so I bought it. It was asked to squeeze it and give juice. I did the same and poured it into a cup. She immediately poured the sugarcane juice from the cup on the ground and insisted on taking the juice that ran on the floor back into the cup. How can I do that? He said it was impossible. But he didn't listen. That's why I'm late, said Birbal pitifully. You who are incapable of pacifying a child have gone and appointed you as the chief advisor. Akbar commented, Lord, it is one of the hardest things in the world. Have you ever comforted a crying child? Asked Birbal. Continued, where? Give it a try. I'm pretending to be a kid now. You make me laugh, said. Akbar also agreed. Immediately, Birbal lay down on the ground and pretended to cry, kicking his arms and legs like a child. Akbar came down from the throne and said, "Don't cry, Papa. What do you want?" begged that. "Ha, I want a gold ring," asked Birbal in a childish voice. Immediately, Akbar removed the ring from his finger and put it on Birbal's finger. But again Birbal cried loudly in the voice of a child, "I want an elephant." Shouting that, Akbar immediately sent for an elephant. After that, Birbal kicked his hands and feet and cried, "An elephant must enter and come out of this ring." Who, he shouted. Holding his head, Akbar said, "Oh, I can't convince you," saying, "Do you understand now, Lord? It is very difficult to comfort a crying child," said Birbal. Hearing that, Akbar laughed and said, "Birbal, what you say is 100% true," said. Tears streamed down the faces of the officials who were eagerly awaiting the punishment that Birbal would receive.